Welcome to the Marriage Boss podcast, and I'm totally pumped up today because I have a special guest, a celebrity in our house. For any of you who have read my book, her name is on the inside cover. Today, Lindsay Fischer, at that time known as Capo, is a trauma-tested author who writes about her own experiences to help others feel less alone. A former English teacher and dance coach, a domestic violence survivor, and now a seemingly infertile myrtle, she refuses to be silent about the things that change our lives. For her, those issues are domestic violence and infertility. Lindsay Fischer graduated from Missouri State University with a Bachelor of Science in Secondary Education and English. Life got messy when she fell in love with a man who would become her abuser, and it pulled her from the classroom. After 3 years of trauma therapy, she saw an opportunity to use her voice against injustices and shame-filled adversity, blogging under the pseudonym Serafina Bianco since 2009. She revealed her real identity in 2015 when her memoir, The House on Sunset, was re-released. She currently lives with her husband and 3 dogs in St. Louis, Missouri, and her new book, which we're going to talk about today, The 2-Week Weight Challenge, A Sassy Girl's Guide to Surviving the TWW, will be released August 1st, 2016. Lindsay, welcome to the Marriage Boss podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here, but it's hard for me to follow up from such a nice introduction from you. I don't think I'm a celebrity. I am sassy. We'll go there, but the rest of that is awesome, and I'm just thankful to be here. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and I'm going to tell everybody why you're a celebrity in our house because, as many of you know, I am an author now. And the lady who you are looking at right now and listening to is one of the reasons I am. And of course, we'll give a shout out to Becky Dixon,
yes,
who was my book coach and editor, and introduced me to you. And so the two of you together actually got a book out of me, which has changed my life and the lives of so many other couples out there. So that's why she's a celebrity in our house. She's known as Capo, and we're so happy to have you today. So it's exciting for me to be talking about something totally different with you now than
yes.
Whether I should use a parenthesis or an exclamation point and all that kind of stuff. So very exciting. And so talk to us a little bit about how did this happen, and how did another book just come out of you, especially for those of us who struggle to write. How did these things happen?
Well, I'll start with the writing aspect of it. And I think for me, I have an English degree. Writing has always been something that I was very passionate about. And I remember when I was in college, one of my professors told me that if I wanted to have any sort of income, writing was not the way to go, right? So I needed to do something else with my passion for words. So teaching high school English seemed like a really good way to do that, but I never lost my love for writing. So I've been blogging since after probably college, pretty consistently. Having said that, that's sort of the story that, melded the first book. So my first blog, or the blog that picked up traction, was about my experience with domestic violence. So I turned that into a book. And then from there, life has been incredibly kind to me. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I stepped out of the classroom to do more speaking and advocacy work in the realm of domestic violence. I also got married. And so from there, the second book sort of comes to life, because when we got married, I was 30, just about to turn 31. And we started talking about having kids because we both were in a very good place to start having that conversation. So ultimately, the minute we got married, we decided that we were going to start trying. And probably, I would say 12 months later, we realized that, now is the point where people start to go, hey, you've been trying for a year, there may be something else going on. I don't think we were ready to kind of accept that yet. So we tried for probably another 6 months. And at 18 months, I decided that we were going to go see a doctor. So ultimately, what has come out of that is that we have a couple of complications that need medical intervention for us to get pregnant. Not the end of the world, just not a great situation. But what I found through that process and through all of those attempts and trying is that There are 2 weeks in particular when you're trying to get pregnant that are incredibly stressful. People that are dealing with infertility, they say for women, is the stress level is comparable to somebody who just had a cancer
Oh
diagnosis
my
or
God.
was just diagnosed with HIV.
Wow.
Having the trauma and the anxiety from domestic violence and then feeling this, I will say that the level is the same, but the symptoms are different,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the stress is incredible and incredibly painful, and but because of the guidance that I received in trauma therapy, I've been able to navigate that in a way that it has not crushed me.
Hmm.
And when I finally realized that that was why, that, the skill set that they taught me, the self-care that they taught me, and using those things that I do on a regular basis now were the reason that I was able to cope with this. The
Hmm.
book came to me one morning. I sat down to write coffee. I sat down to get coffee, and I wrote it in 2 days, and then started the editing process, which you
Wow.
know about and is brutal. But
Yeah.
so I started that, and here we are. I just thought that the skills that I have as a survivor to sort of rebuild my life were so influential in who I've become that if I can give that to somebody else that is feeling some sort of trauma that is similar, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. I read it cover to cover in one sitting, and it was that interesting and compelling, and there were three reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. One was I love the way you deliver information. You do it in a very concise, consumable fashion,
Mm-hmm.
something that you have tried to teach me, because it doesn't need to be done in a lot of words, and with certainly with extra words. So you're good at doing that. I'm a big fan of you because the way you deliver all your passions out into the world, this one, another one, is just so full of life and excitement and super authentic and real.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is that this is an issue that, because I work with couples, it's one of the most stressful things that my husbands and wives are dealing with. And so I couldn't think of anybody better to come on, especially after I read the book and saw how you delivered it. So again, for all three reasons, I'm so excited to have you here talking about it. So let's cover. I know it's called a challenge, and certainly what I saw it as was something that would be like a live document during the
Yes.
process. So talk a little bit about the challenge and the, if I may say, workbook nature of this book.
When I was writing it, I thought that it was important to give people the opportunity to sort of reflect on what I was requesting of them. So at the core, I would say it's supposed to be an attempt to challenge people into doing something self-care related every day.
Okay.
And so every day there is a challenge aspect of the book that comes in. It says, I want you to try this today. Give yourself 15 minutes to take a walk. Dance, watch a movie that you love, write yourself a love letter, all of these examples. Those are the challenge pieces of it. Beyond that, there's also kind of this psychological side of what is this actually doing for you when you dedicate that time to yourself? Because I've found that so often when we're in a state of stress or there's something that's very emotional going on in our lives, we're so eager to pay attention to how it's impacting other people. We don't want to put our stress or our burden on someone else, so we carry it without actually sort of articulating that that's what we're doing. You stuff it down, and then it gets bigger, and it's hard to cope. And like you said, for couples, that can be really damaging in a relationship. So the book is designed, number one, to give you that challenge aspect, but number two, to help you sort of see what the point of that challenge is and how it can truly change your day. And then if you do it over, a period of 14 days, how that's impacting your life, with the intention of also taking those skills that you learn inside of the challenge and implementing them after you're done with it.
Yeah, I can see how a lot of the tools and the suggestions can be applied in other areas of our lives, from relationship to career, family, friends, community, getting your word out there. I find when I read your stuff, whether it's a story about something or it's just an exercise, it's just compelling. So true that you do have that talent to bring out the inspiration and stimulation in helping someone else attack their problem, or the issue that's going on. So talk to me a little bit about now. I know you're married to a great guy, so you definitely married up. You found a great guy.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what happens during this time for, what's going on for your husband. Like what's happening when you're in this place. How were you able to concentrate a little more on self-care, and then what's going on with him at this time?
Okay, so you want all of the dirty details, that's basically what you're saying, right? So here's what I will say about all of this is that through the process, and a lot of times when we're talking about infertility, just in society, we generally assume that it is the woman who is infertile, right? And 40% of infertile couples actually are dealing with male factor infertility.
Okay.
So they automatically will start fertility testing on the woman. You go through several different tests before they ever suggest that maybe your man needs to be checked out.
Okay.
So even in the beginning of this, regardless of who is the problem, which I hate to say it that way, but whoever has the diagnosis that prevents, pregnancy in a normal setting,
yep.
You have the woman goes through all of this stuff, so it's very easy to start resenting your husband. And I noticed that in myself very quickly when I was going to the doctor's office repeatedly, and I was having invasive ultrasounds, or they were talking about outpatient surgeries to do these other tests, and I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute. All he has to do, even when he goes in, is go into a room, do his business into a cup, and call it a day. How is this fair, right?
Yeah.
So even before there's a diagnosis, you can immediately see that sometimes women can start resenting their partner.
Yeah.
And I think what I also found through this is that in my brain, while we're going through infertility treatment, while we're going through, even just the diagnosis process, I'm looking at the end result as having a baby, right? And for him, because I get so hyper-focused on that, he starts to go, wait a minute, my wife is behaving in a completely different way than what I anticipated she would.
Yeah.
And so his concern becomes me, and my concern becomes the baby, and right there, we're off kilter.
Yep.
So when I started to notice those things, and I was actually listening to him and sort of listening to his concerns and what he was afraid of, and having those open, difficult conversations, I realized that because I was so hyper-focused on this baby, I wasn't taking care of me, which is what he was seeing as a direct, correlation between all of that. And so I really said, you know what, how to take care of yourself. Like, that 15 minutes a day is what helps you build this relationship over here. Yeah. And this is my number one priority, because ultimately even going through fertility treatments does not guarantee that we will have a baby. It just doesn't. I mean, you can go into adoption. There are multiple other ways to get around it, and to build your family if you want to. Yeah. But through all of that, if we are not strong, it is not going to work. And even people that go through these things and have that baby can get distracted by the baby but never fix the root of their problem, which is them detaching. And so you look, a couple years down the road after people have gone through this, and you can see divorce rates and problems in marriages, and that is not something that I am interested in any capacity. So I'm
glad you're not, and I know your husband isn't. And
no, it's not.
It's as you're talking, I'm thinking what I see a lot in my work is I see not only the stress from trying to get pregnant, or even family planning conversations, certainly from infertility, or I guess we call negative pregnancy tests, right? Mm-hmm. But I also see this issue rear its ugly head in different areas that we're kind of blaming, we're kicking the cat or talking about the toilet paper. So what I see is stress from this area bubbling up or showing up in a different, more family stress, more job stress, money stuff. So we'll pick on other things because we don't want to go and blame or resent our spouse during this infertility process. Right. So for anyone listening and watching today, keep your eyes and ears open after you hear what Lindsay has to say for things popping up in other areas of your relationship that may be rooted in this infertility issue. So powerful stuff, and like anything else, has to be talked about, has to be resolved. I know you give some great exercises for each day. Talk about, let's talk for a second about what someone can do who is totally into talking about it and their spouse is not into talking about it, whether that be the husband or wife.
Well, I think there are a couple of things that you can do. And I think for me, I am the big communicator, obviously, in my relationship.
Sure.
My husband is more of the quiet, reserved one, if you will, which we need that to balance each other out. But there would be times where I would attempt to have conversations with him without directly saying, I want to have a conversation about what's going on with, the baby making process.
Okay.
And when I finally would say to him, and even just send him a text while he was at work, which was not a stressful text, but hey, I realize that we haven't actually directly had this conversation. I would like to have this conversation with you. And I know that sounds so silly, but in his head, he's like, okay, I know that we can have this conversation now, because he knows what I want. So speak directly to what you want to have the conversation about, as opposed to being, trying to bring it up in a backwards way. Like, let's talk about baby names, and then try to build off of that. If I said to him, we need to talk about the IVF consultation that we're going into and come up with a plan for how we're going to pay for that. He's ready to have that conversation. But you can't blow everything at him all at once either. It's a step-by-step sort of process. I will also say that as somebody who's gone through therapy and is a huge advocate for it, or any kind of counseling, if that is something that you're still struggling with after you've made several attempts that are direct, that may be a conversation that you need to have. Is, do we need to bring somebody else in to help us communicate through this so that it doesn't become a bigger issue?
This is so powerful, and I'm thinking about so many different areas, and this thing has legs. First, I'm definitely going to want to see a copy of that actually directly text, because I don't think you're supposed to use those two words together. If I did that, you'd be all over me. So I need the actually directly text.
Perfect.
And then the second thing is, I know there's a lot of terminology. Now, I think I told you a little bit in my messaging to you that Carol and I also went through this, but it was 20 years ago. So things were slightly different then. I remember, basal thermometers and looking at like times of the day and this and that and, positions and stuff. But when I read your book, I was in a whole new realm of terminology and just, there were just so many different words, and there was a language. And I was thinking about people I know that I'm working with right now who are struggling with these challenges, and they haven't used all of this language. So there actually is a lingo to kind of embrace, to get you to feel more comfortable, certainly with doctors and with your peers when you start to talk about this stuff. So talk a little bit about how the lingo came about. Is this you, or is this just you learning, or you having your typical insatiable hunger to know all things word related and letter related?
Probably a mix of all of those things. Okay. It's not me. I did not create this. I will say, I found Facebook groups because I have my own Facebook group for survivors of domestic violence, and they can come together and talk about whatever they need to vent, and just sort of have a safe space.
Okay.
So when I was looking for information on infertility, I thought there has got to be an infertility group on Facebook. And of course, there is. So I go into this group, they accept my request because it's secret. And all of a sudden, I'm reading through all of these people's posts, and they're talking about OPKs and BFPs and all of these things that I have no idea what it is. Yeah. And it was literally like reading another language. And so in the group, they had, a list of the ones that they most commonly use. But through just that group and then being in other groups and sort of seeing all of the websites that use them, I tried to compile as many as I could that were commonly used and weren't specific to one diagnosis, and put those in the book because, number one, I needed that for myself.
Yep.
I still go back to reference that when somebody says something that I have no idea what it is. All of these tests that they do on you, I'm like, I don't know. So I go back to the list, and I just thought, if I can put this in this book, it's going to help other people sort of navigate these groups if they decide to join them, or the blogs, because tons of people use these initialisms in their blogs too.
Yeah. And the thing that I found adorable about it, A, but then so helpful about it, B, is that I think that anything we can do to help people become more comfortable with a subject helps bring walls down, and it brings your stress and fear level down.
Yep.
If you understand, like if a doctor says, whatever one of these terms, I don't think I saw BFF in there anywhere. I was looking for that one.
No.
But if the doctor uses the term and you don't know what it is, it can automatically, now I'm stressed again. I don't know what that means. What is it? I'm ashamed to ask, because obviously we're in a shame mode. We're in a fear mode.
Yes.
So that's why this book is so important. It's important because it tells a story which we all can relate to, which is still too much taboo for me. We have to open this conversation. That's why you're so good at opening conversations. B, it brings clear, concise information in a consumable form so that you can just jump right in. Literally, like I said, in one day, you'll be able to read and start to use this information. And then C, you're going to be educated on everything you need to know, resources. I'm sure that are you going to have a website for the book, or is there going to be a place where people can connect with you and or a group of some sort?
Yeah, so there will definitely be a Facebook group that I am working on, and I think it's just going to be called the 2-Week Weight Challenge, so that it's easy to find.
Perfect.
Ideally in that group, it will be, again, another place for people to sort of vent, talk about their situation, but what I'm hoping is that people will also come in there and find an accountability partner to work with through their 2 weeks. So if somebody, we're all on different schedules and cycles, but if you find somebody that's on the same day of your cycle with you, and you can go through those 2 weeks with them and check in there, you're going to be more likely to commit to actually doing those things. And so I'm hoping it's kind of it ends up being a place for them to come for whatever they need. So hopefully the other people in there can be a resource to them to find the information that they're looking for. There is going to be a website. I am dragging my feet on that one, but it is coming. And there will be more information about it on my website that I have live right now, too.
Okay, cool. And I know that, that for the men in our audience that are listening into this, it is important to learn all these terms also. And am I correct in remembering you're a St. Louis Cardinals fan?
Absolutely.
Okay, so guys, I'm talking baseball terms now. So like OPS, the batting average, RBI, or now RBIs, which changed to RSBI or whatever, right? And they changed to
ERAs,
yeah. So these terms are no different than our baseball terminology. So for all the men out there that know all the baseball terms, jump in here, embrace this for your lady friend, wife, girl, whatever. If you're, in a partnership, it's important for all of us to participate in this conversation because we can't ever relate to how stressful it is for the ladies. So, as good marriage boss men, we need to embrace that and uncover, cultivate, and celebrate all the things that we go through, because it is the fabric of life. And you know what? While we're trying to create these new lives, we do have, our own lives together, and we have to work to try to keep that relationship solid during this potentially stressful, but on the other hand, could be a hugely connecting and celebrating moment. Again, whether baby comes or not,
right,
we still have a relationship. There's two beautiful people here who came together for a reason. We always want that to remain intact and even get better along the way.
Yeah, and I would like to also add that, I don't know if you remember at the very beginning of the book, I've tried to add a way for the partner who is not going through the fertility, treatments to actually participate in the 2 weeks with them, to leave a love note or to leave some sort of encouragement, because a little goes a long way in terms of, if your partner is committed to doing this activity to sort of better themselves, but you are encouraging that, they're going to feel supported, and you are going to feel more like you are contributing inside of this process. And I think that's also, there's guilt associated with, the partner that doesn't have to go through all of the testing or all of the treatments, watching this other person do so much or go through so much and not being a part of that can feel isolating for them as well. And so to be able to sort of contribute in any fashion, I wanted them to have a space to do that inside of my book too.
You did a good job doing it too, and this is this is a dress rehearsal for parenting. So starting to do things together and really see life through the other person's eyes can also boost your your love and your connection. And folks, I want to let you know this is not just another boring self-help book either. There are some spicy sections in here. We're not going to say anything about it, but in true Lindsay form, she brings it all the time. So, this young lady always knows how to deliver great information to really up-level you in all areas of your life. It's exciting, it's informative, and I loved it. Of course, I'm honored to be on your path and promoting you as always. And so tell people how they can find you now.
Yeah, so you can find me currently. My website is survivorswillbeheard.com.
Okay.
And that's where all the information is stored right now. I believe the 2weekweightchallenge.com is coming soon.
Okay.
But we're still sort of in the process of that. I am all over social media. If you just search my name, Fischer is spelled Fischer.
Okay.
So Lindsay Fischer on Facebook, Twitter, I'm there too. And Goodreads, kind of everywhere at this point. But if you Google my name, you'll find me.
Cool.
Survivorswillbeheard.com is like the storehouse for everything currently.
Cool. Awesome. Well, it was nice to have you on the show. I'm so excited, as always, to do anything regarding you. So thanks for coming, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.